Thank you for your curiosity. We have with us the USBF Super Welterweight Champion. He's also a father, husband, and a U.S. Army veteran. Ladies and gentlemen, with us in the goddamn room is Angel Machete Munoz. What's up, brother? How are you, man?
They're doing good. Enjoying Sunday, enjoying the day with my family, getting some chores done around here. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to, have a good conversation.
Absolutely, brother. And thank you for your time, man. I greatly appreciate this. But I usually start with this question. And in order to understand the present, catch a glimpse into the future, and really understand you, we kind of have to go back into the past. So with that in mind, what were you like as a child?
What was I like as a child? I think I'd say I was just normal kid. Grew up in a Mexican American household. Wasn't um too much of a troublemaker. I think a lot of people expect me to say, I was a troublemaker as a kid, but I wasn't. My father raised me to be, a stand-up young man. So from the time when I was young, I was, being taught things, how to act, how to carry myself. So I didn't get in too much trouble growing up. Um, I wasn't the most athletic kid either. I played some sports. I played soccer at a very young age, but that ended quickly. I played like one season of soccer that ended quickly. I never really played sports until later on in life, going into like high school, um, because we couldn't really afford to play. My parents couldn't afford to put me into sports, so I really was just normal kid, just trying to, I was a daydreamer. I would dream about, what I wanted to do in the future, and obviously, we're here now.
And man, that's definitely what matters. And before we continue, I did want to say thank you so much for your service. But can you talk about the values you may have picked up during your time with the 82nd Airborne and your time serving in Afghanistan?
Yeah, man. I served 3 years, 3.5 years in the army, which is the minimum contract. Coming out of high school, I was playing football prior to everything that I'm doing now. And that was a dream. I wanted to go and play in the NFL. Um, but I wasn't very, I'd say, disciplined the way I am now. I didn't really know what it took to get to a higher level. Um, so I joined the military. That was my way of pretty much starting life as an adult. I joined the service. I joined the army. And I joined the 82nd Airborne Division. Infantry as well. So 11 Bravo was my MOS. And so it's a very dangerous job. It's a job that takes a lot of sacrifice. It's a day to day is very difficult. So I had to overcome a lot of things. I had to learn how to deal with stress, which is a very important skill that I believe I have over others. When things are getting very stressful, when things aren't going my way, I'm still able to maneuver to stay calm in these scenarios and come out on the other end. I learned to face my fears head on. Um, there's a lot of things that were scary. Jumping out of airplanes was very scary for someone that I didn't even really know what I was getting myself into. It was really just for the money. They offered me a bonus to take this job. So I was like, all right, I'll do it. Whatever comes my way, I'll be able to face it. And there were times where it definitely was scary. Afghanistan was a scary moment. Um, a lot of things went wrong during that time. I went when we were pulling out of Afghanistan. We were at the airport in Kabul. And so if you look back on, you know, the news and what was happening out there, I was involved in all of that, with my company and everyone else. But ultimately, I got out of the service this year. Um, Decided to, I got out honorable, and I met a lot of great people in the service too. So I made a lot of memories.
Absolutely, man. And that's wonderful. And thank you so much for your service. I'm prior service, but I'm U.S. Navy. So
Okay,
didn't have to do Afghanistan, didn't have to do any
thank
of
you.
that stuff. My
Yeah.
brother who passed away, may he rest in peace. He was Marines, and he was in Iraq and Afghanistan, but he was during the war, like when it first had
Yeah.
started, and they
Yeah.
captured Saddam Hussein back. I think it's called Mission Spearhead was the first one, and then overall, I think it's called Iraqi Freedom. And during
Yep.
that war, he was there, and he told me about those experiences. And he says you don't really think about how much deserts really impact the way you plan for things because it's completely different terrain everywhere you're going. So
Yeah,
thank you.
that's a big thing because especially like in the 82nd, and we would talk about it a lot. That just our military training was, I mean, we train the terrain we train in is mostly woods, woodland area. Um, it's not desert, it's not cities, you know. We'll do room clearing and stuff like that, but we're in a desert city, you know, in Afghanistan where we're fighting, which we always felt that's where we should be training at. But yeah, it was an experience, to say the least. But I want to thank you and your brother for your guys' service.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, I'm not the guy. I didn't do that much. I was just
Yeah,
there, and they
I
saw
can't
me.
say I did much either, you know, but just the sacrifice alone, you know, to step foot in that direction, you know, is
Yeah,
something big.
absolutely. I agree because it's always like you write the check with your mouth and you try to cash it with your ass, and that's the whole thing. And people
Yeah,
kind of
that's what,
forget. Like it's a job. It's an actual job, and you go every day and you write that check with your mouth, and you're willing to cash it with your ass. And let's see how that
yep,
goes.
for
So
sure.
thank you, brother, man. That was amazing, and I'm happy that you're home. I'm happy that that part of your life, that chapter, you learned all that you had to. You got those lifelong friendships. You developed those relationships. But now you're home. You get to focus on you and your family. But you do have the USBF title, and can you tell me at this time what does it mean to have that title, to hold that belt, and physically, the weight of that belt? Because I've always heard that they're like 12 or 13 pounds of gold, something to that effect. But like when it goes on your shoulder, do you ever have a moment where like, oh shit, wait a minute, and it kind of like weighs on you a little bit?
No, that belt's heavy for sure. But in all honesty, that belt doesn't mean a lot to me, if anything at all. You know, that belt, I won that belt my last fight in North Carolina. You know, I started my career out in North Carolina and I finished it winning that belt. So that felt good. You know, I wasn't expecting a fight for that belt. There were rumors and we were talking about it like, hey, we could put this belt on the line. It's a vacant belt, and then it's a USBF title, so United States Boxing Federation title. It's not not no one in the real boxing world can really name that belt. But I said, you know what, put it on the table. You know, I'm trying to come for everything. I'm gonna make this fight big, and I wanted that belt. I just wanted to take every opportunity I could, and I still do. So when they said, I could get that belt, I was like, yeah, let's do it. The guy I was facing was a veteran, a journeyman, so he was tough, and he's the only guy that I didn't knock out. His name is Terry Roscoe. So I knew he was coming in to that fight to get that belt as well. You know, he wanted it too. And ultimately I came out with the win, a unanimous decision. But the belt doesn't hold too much. I mean, I put it. It's almost like a trophy. You know, it's like a trophy belt, because it's not on the line. It's never on the line anymore. It's just really the trophy.
Okay, I did want to know what that was like because as for those who follow boxing, maybe those who don't, the four major organizations are the belts that you want, and then the Rings Magazine belt kind of comes with it. But I feel like the word champion is so many people don't understand that that's not a loose term; that's a real term. And when you hold the belt and you are the world champion or you are the unified champion, the national champion, something that has that name champion on it, to me at least, the guy that's been a pugilist his whole life and who's trained with a few of them, it just feels like, is there like a significance when you put the belt on? Do you ever feel different? For you, maybe not. As you said, it's the trophy. It's that thing like, hey, I won this while I was doing the thing I love. But it's definitely one of those things that I feel like it's amazing, man. You already accomplished that in what 5 to 6 professional pro fights. You have one belt. That's still a lot, man.
Right. Yeah. No. It definitely. When I was thinking about it, I wanted to use that to have that on my resume to set me apart from the other fighters that I'm competing with, because ultimately I want to get to the position to where I can fight for the WBC. You know, the big belts that are out there that people recognize. Um, and just to have maybe a smaller belt will put me just a step further than the other guy that wants that same thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was thinking about that as well, and I just wanted to mention you just bought your first home, so congratulations. Um, do you mind telling me, like, being as a father and a husband, do those things, and now that you have a mortgage and all those things are coming to you, does it change the way you prepare or the way you compete?
Yeah, so to speak on my home, I bought that home and I bought in another home as well. I consider myself outside of boxing to be a real estate investor. I'm very into real estate. I educate myself in real estate a lot, and I've been educating myself on investing and real estate investing since I was in high school, with the plan to invest in real estate. I hope my goals this year is to buy another two properties, and I keep them as rentals, and that helps fuel my, it helps fund my life, pays the bills while I'm in training camp. And I can't. Well, I could have a job, but I don't want to. I want to go. I'm going full time into boxing to really make this work. So yeah, I purchased my first home at the age of 21, I believe. It was 2021, and that was a huge accomplishment. And then I bought the second property later on that next year. So I believe I was about to. It was this past year. I was going to turn 22, but I was still 21. Um, so I bought two properties when I was 21, and it definitely was stressful. There's a lot that goes into it. Being a father on top of that is like I have to provide for my family. Um, and any mistake I make is going to affect them. So there's a lot of pressure when you're dealing with uh, big decisions like purchasing a home, purchasing real estate. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, and things did go wrong. And like I said, I'm able to handle stress and to be able to maneuver during these stressful times to come out on the other end. So now I am proud to say that I own two rental properties and I plan to own more coming up this year.
That's wonderful, man, and I'm happy to hear that you have like that business mindset of like I have to make sure that no matter what, everything is taken care of. Because too often we do hear about these fighters, they go through their whole careers, they spend all the money they make, and then all of a sudden we're asking them in retirement, like, oh well, what do you have left? Nothing. I don't have anything, and we're kind of stuck going. You made more money in one day than I ever made in a year. Like, what do we do with this kind of funds? So I'm happy to hear that you have that business mindset, man. Like, congratulations. I do hope you get those next two properties this year. That'd be amazing as well.
It would.
Um,
Thank you.
Absolutely, brother. And looking at your current record, you're 6-0 with 5 KOs. That puts you at about 83% of a finishing rate, or at least winning by KO. When you go into the fight, do you go in with the mentality of I'm going to finish this guy, I'm going to put this guy away right away, or is there something where like you're just fighting and you see the opening?
I'm never really thinking like right away. I'm not trying to go in there like I got to get this first round knockout. I have before. I did like the first fight. My first two fights were like, all right, I got to get this first round knockout. I'm trying to get him out there quick because you don't get paid for overtime in boxing. Um, but then I'd find that I'm looking sloppy. I'm throwing punches that are just not calculated. They're just power punches, and um, I started to think more about being a boxer, and hitting without getting hit is ultimately my goal in the ring. So when I go in there, I want to hit him, make him miss, make him pay, and if he falls, that's even better. I do want him. I do want to inflict as much pain on my opponent as possible. This is boxing. It's the hurt business. This is what we're in there for. And if it's not me, if it's not him, it's me. So I do go in there. I want to get the knockout, but I do it tactically.
Absolutely, man. I think that's wonderful, and that is the way that we definitely wanted to see a lot of these up and coming fighters do. But it's not uncommon to see guys in the first like 10 fights just kind of trying to figure it out. And the fact that you've done it in 6 and you seem to be doing it at a high level. And it's like you said, the first 2 fights you went in there, and maybe sometimes it's also the nerves. Like people don't understand how anxious you get right before you're about to fight somebody, because that person has also been trained. That person actually knows what they're gonna do. So I can imagine that you guys walk into it like really like staticked up and a lot of adrenaline, and then you go in there and then what I've heard a lot of guys say is that the first round is it flies by, and then the second round, then they feel the energy dump, and then they see the adrenaline kind of go like this. And I think with your experience, you definitely took from that experience and go, you know what, I can't get too overhyped in the moment. I can't let the adrenaline pump or the dump affect my performance. So happy you figured that out this early in your career. That says a lot about your maturity, man. But um, I was scrolling through your Instagram feed and I see this old school Chevy truck, and I was like, damn. And then I saw in the caption that you had always wanted one. Was it something that, like, growing up? I know that you said your parents didn't have the money to do sports, but, like, was it just tough for you financially at home when you were a kid? And then, like, getting the truck, was that like a validation of, like, I'm financially secure now? Like, this is my thing for me.
Yeah, I mean, we're in Southern California. Everything's expensive. Growing up, we weren't rich. We had times where we didn't have a lot of money. Times when we did, there was a lot of ups and downs growing up. Um, but ultimately, when you start out as an adult, a kid that just graduates from high school and goes into the real world, we're all broke. You got to figure out a way to acquire what you want. Not from with your parents' money, not with anybody else's money. You got to earn it. And I earned that truck. I always wanted a classic truck. Um, High school, I was dreaming about driving a classic truck while I was working construction. Working at Jack in the Box, working all these other jobs. I used to hold signs on the corner, just advertising. All these jobs that I didn't want to work, and I would daydream about the vehicles that I'd want to drive and what I wanted to do with my life. And ultimately, now I'm at a point where, yeah, I bought that truck. Um, I'm working on it now. It's not completely finished, but it makes me happy to have something that the younger me was dreaming about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that heals your inner child because you're like, damn, all those years I really wanted this, and now I finally got it. It's mine. Me lo merezco. It's mine. I did that shit. I worked for it.
Yep.
So I understand the pride that gives you. But I want to know though, like, are you like a lowrider kind of guy or just the trucks? Like,
Low all the way to the floor, man. I'm about to get it lowered. I got some big plans for the truck. And I was just telling my wife yesterday that I plan on owning multiple. I want a collection of classic vehicles that I plan on leaving, my grandkids.
yeah, absolutely, because those are valuable, and over time they're worth more and more. Especially you can get the antique plates if you can, like, fully restore it. That's like that's
And
top
that's
notch, and you've left
that's
some
another
wealth.
thing of why I always have like a business mindset. And the truth is that these classic vehicles don't depreciate in value anymore. They only go up. The more you do to them, the more they're worth. And I always told myself, man, instead of owning a Lamborghini, I just want man, the cleanest C10 out there. I want it fully restored, and I rather pull up to an event, a big event with, you know, everyone there, a huge fight. I rather pull up in that classic vehicle that has so much more character than a $300,000 Lamborghini. Um, yeah, I'm definitely happy with it. I'm a lower it soon, so you'll be seeing it again.
I'm looking forward to it, man. So like you said, you do reside in California. You do train at KMF Boxing, and I see that you occasionally head down to F1 in Arizona. Do you go to F1 strictly during camps, or is this like for occasional sparring? Is there like a system that you have?
Uh, yeah. So F1 is where Elijah Garcia trains down in Arizona. I'm not sure. He's a middleweight. Elijah Garcia. He's only 21 years old, man, and he's like ranked number three in the U.S. or I think I'm not sure in the world, but you see it. You could have seen him on the Canelo versus Charlo undercard, and
I
then prior
watched.
to that, I believe it was the Tank versus Ryan undercard.
Yeah.
And I had talked with. I'm not sure you're familiar with Terry. Terry, um, he introduced me to Elijah and got me down there for some sparring. And I've been twice, and I actually planning to go down there in about like another week or so to go get some sparring with Elijah. And it's cool just to travel and to meet good people like the Garcia family that are in the sport of boxing because boxing's a lonely sport. Um, every fighter out here is trying to get what they want to get, trying to achieve what they want to achieve, and you can't really do that, having all these friends and going out and doing all this stuff. So when you find someone that is on the same path as you or wants to be on the same path as you. Like I have a lot of other teammates that I consider really close, and that's because they want exactly what I want. We're both trying to achieve the same thing. So they'll come down there to F1 too, which is really cool. And yeah, KMF in San Bernardino is my home gym. It's amazing what we've accomplished. With all the pro stable that we have. We just My Coach Jeremy Flores, is the owner of the gym and my head coach, and he just opened that gym uh, this past year, a couple months ago. Um, it's a huge accomplishment. I'm very happy to be a part of this team.
Absolutely, man. Shout out to your coach, because getting a gym open and then having the kind of roster he has already is fantastic. And we want more success for you and your team. Elijah Garcia, yeah, I know who Elijah is, man. That guy is already becoming such a staple of boxing in that weight class. And Terry, who you did mention, is a good friend of mine. Many years ago, I met the guy. I thought he was insane, but I loved his passion for the sport. He loves combat sports. There's
He's
no one.
extremely passionate about the sport. He's an amazing guy. Um, and speaking of Elijah's, my stablemate Elijah Flores just fought on the Jake Paul undercard last night and had an amazing performance. It was incredible. He's Coach Jay's son, and they're pretty much like the face of the gym. They've been doing it for years. They've been doing it since Elijah was a kid, all the way in New York. They're from the Bronx, so they came over here to California, and they're making a name for themselves and helping us, as the guys out here, make a name for themselves as well.
Absolutely, man. That's wonderful to hear that story. And yeah, I did catch it on DAZN last night. I was like half dead. I had a guest over, so I had to like peek into the living room and then come back, and then like peek into the living room, come
Yeah,
back. It was fantastic, amazing fight. Congratulations to your teammate Elijah Flores. Fantastic fight, man. And I know that you guys are just going to continue to ramp up over time. Speaking of your gym, dude, I saw your sparring footage, and I watched you guys' sparring footage, and it's intense. It's pretty fucking scary to hear the thuds you guys hit each other with. But do you hard spar strictly during camp, or do you do it on a regular basis? Because we did have an MMA fighter recently, a pro who knows his shit, and he's a coach now. He says hard sparring is good, but it's only really good in his mind during camp, and I agree with him. I think camp is the best time. But do you hard spar regularly, or do you just do it during camp?
well, that question's tough because I'm always in camp in reality. As you see, whenever I finish a fight, I announce my next fight maybe a week later, and I don't like to take too much time off, considering that I am not as experienced as most people. I only had 10 amateur fights. I've only been boxing for, I think we're coming up on 4 years now. Compared to the guys that have 100 plus fights, have been doing this since they were 8 years old. I have way less experience, so I'm always in camp, and I'm always trying to get the toughest work possible. We go down to LA to Manny Robles' gym, where he has guys from out of the country come in, and all these different fighters with some fighters with huge names, and most of the guys that I'm sparring with, 99% of them are professional undefeated fighters. And when you get in there with another professional undefeated fighter, it's not very likely that you're gonna just tap up and just mess around or try to work on things here and there. That's not the time for that. That's the time to get better, and you really only get better by going, I wouldn't say 100%, right? Because we're not trying to knock each other out, but we're definitely not going light. If you make a mistake in there, you could get dropped, you could get hurt, and that's because you're in there with high level professionals. So yeah, most of my sparring is pretty tough.
Dope, man. And it's cool that you get that kind of experience. And like you said, you may not be experienced in the amateurs, but you're picking it up as a pro. Do you think that a lot of what kills a lot of the professionals, because I've seen it over time, it looks like they start off on a hot streak and then they get comfortable and then they plateau and they only fight 4 times a year. And you sound like a guy that wants to be A, super active, B, you want more experience because you want to consistently be able to improve as you're going along your career. And then C, it even sounds like you like a scrap. I don't know if that's true, but it sounds like you actually like a fist fight. And that's just that's just from the outside looking in.
Yeah, well, of course I like a fist fight. That's why I'm in boxing. But I don't like to get hit. Not that I won't take a hit, because sometimes you gotta take one to give one. But man, I want to be a boxer puncher. I want to make people miss and land shots on them as they miss. I'm a counter puncher. I'm strong. I'm fast. I'm big for my weight class. I'm dropping down to 147 now, so you guys won't be seeing me at 154 anymore. So I'll be a welterweight. A true welterweight. And I put this. Yeah, I just think that it's important that you know I stay fresh, because I don't want to take too much damage and shorten my career. I am 21, so boxers only get to maybe what 36 is probably the end of your prime.
Yeah, I'd say usually the hump or the hiatus in boxing is between 33 and 35. That's like the golden years. Like the 32 sometimes if you're really good. And you're like 32 to 35 is like that prime, and then 36 it just begins to fall off. And we
Yeah,
kind of know that that's because of deterioration, and then a lot of these guys also have hundreds of amateur fights.
right.
And then
And to
some of it
speak
is just getting
to,
hit.
to speak on the guys getting comfortable, is because maybe they're getting paid, and they don't really need to fight as often as they need to, or they get comfortable with a certain amount of money, and then it just becomes boxing, since they've been doing it for so long, becomes kind of a job, you know. And for me, this is a dream. I was in the military when I started boxing. This was my way out of a place where I was at. This was my way out of working a job that I didn't want to work anymore. So I don't plan on getting comfortable. I have big plans to take over. That's what I tell myself. I'm sitting in the sauna thinking about all these fighters that I plan on taking out and where I want to get to, the money I want to make, and I'm not going to get comfortable with this amount when I set my goal to be at the top.
So we've reached the halfway mark of our episode, and of course we have to make sure to shout out this video sponsor. It's none other than Sanibel. Sanibel.com allows you to buy great quality products at a very affordable price. You can go head over to sanibel.com/GOTDAM. Get 10% off at checkout, and it also goes back to the proceeds of the show, which allows us to get better equipment. With that in mind, I also wanted to remind you that Sanibel does make boxing gloves. So if you're more into the boxing scene than the MMA scene, you're not out of luck. They do make boxing gloves that are of very high quality and very affordable. As a matter of fact, a former Olympian from the UK is sponsored by them. He'll even teach you how to wrap your hands with the hand gel wraps. If you don't know how to, it's actually on YouTube. It's very much available and very much affordable. So head over to sanibel.com/GOTDAM. That's GotDAM. No, not the one your mama said you can't say. And go ahead and plug in the promo code. You get 10% off, and I get a portion of the proceeds. So that helps us all. And now back to our amazing episode with Angel Machete Munoz. I love to hear it, man. You're a fighter's fighter. You're the kind of guy that you're gonna be. There's that subtext in MMA. This is your favorite fighter's favorite fighter. You might end up being that guy soon, buddy, because you're fucking awesome.
Hear that too. That I would consider that to be a great compliment. People want to see good fights, but boxing's very, at the moment, is very difficult, because you see the guys that are really great boxers, strict boxers, right, getting booed for not enough action. That's understandable from the fans, because the fans aren't fighters. They don't have anything on the line. They came to see a fight. And then you have the guys who maybe take too much damage, and then it's like, man, my fighter's losing, even though he's pressing forward. He's my favorite fighter, but he keeps getting hit too much. So I want to find that, and I'm pretty. When you see me fight, I'm taking minimal damage while landing punches, making the fight exciting. Being entertaining. That's a big part of what I feel is gonna get me to where I want to be.
Absolutely, man. Love to hear that, brother. Thank you. This next, actually, ironically, this question falls right into it. You're going to be moving down to 47, and I gotta say, you're jumping into the jaws of like what I believe is the most competitive weight class in all of professional boxing throughout all of history. I mean, we had the era of the Four Kings in that weight class, and even some of the lighter weight classes too. But What are your thoughts on weight cuts? And it's highly disputed because some people think that if you cut regularly, your body has kind of adjusted to that feeling. And then there's others who feel like the process should be made a little bit healthier in some way, shape, or form. You're going from 54, where you have immense power, dude. You put a lot of people out, and you're going down to 47 at this weight class of 47. Like, how do you feel about the whole process of the weight cut? And then for you, what does a weight cut feel like?
Right. Okay. So I started boxing I started boxing in general. Just I went into the gym at 200 pounds. I was I feel like I was a little bit overweight, but I was athletic. I came from football, so I'd eat a lot, I'd lift a lot. And boxing's very different. I started to cut weight when I went amateur. I started my amateur career at 168. I even had some fights at 175. Um, and I won all of my amateur fights, even though it was only 10. I won some big tournaments over there on the East Coast. And when I went pro at 160. At each and every point when I was making weight from since the amateurs to now, I've been in about a 10-pound difference from my fight weight. Sure, sometimes I would, you know, eat too much and I'd blow up a little bit after a fight. I know after that last fight in North Carolina, I was pretty upset with myself because I fought at, I believe that was my fight at 160. I'm not sure if it was at 154. It was at 160, and I went up to like 178, but then got back down the next week. Just training and started eating right. I diet pretty strictly throughout camp, which makes it easy. And I only cut 10 pounds to make weight, which consists of me just eating a little bit less, smaller portion, running, drinking a gallon of water. So I'm drinking a lot of water, and doing the sauna as well. On the last day right before the fight, or before weigh-in, sorry, before weigh-ins, I cut the water and hit the sauna, hit the run, sweat everything out, and I'm on weight. It's never too tough. Every weight cut's gonna be tough because that day before weigh-ins, you can't eat, you can't drink anything because everything's gonna make you go up in weight. Um, so for every weight cut's tough, but I think of it as like almost like an advantage that I don't have to cut a lot of weight. Because once I get that water in my system and have a decent meal, I'm perfectly fine. I'm ready to go. I'm in shape and ready for the fight. As to where other fighters may be cutting too much weight, they're cutting a lot of weight. They're having to struggle to cut weight right before the fight, which is taking a mental toll on them. And then after they weigh in and they make weight, they eat a ton of food and blow up. You see guys are blowing up like 20 pounds in one night. And then that slows you down in the fight, I believe. Um, so that's my thoughts on weight cutting. I think fighters should stay lean, stay on a diet throughout, just training in general. You don't even have to be in camp, but just staying on a diet throughout the week at least, and then maybe enjoying food on the weekend, enjoying like a cheat meal. And I take this seriously. I'm a professional athlete. I treat my body well. I don't drink. I don't smoke. Every advantage that I can get, I'm gonna do that because, like I said, I feel like I'm at a disadvantage with my experience. I feel like I have a chip on my shoulder and I have to play catch up. So everything that I feel I'm supposed to do, I'm gonna do it.
That's a great way of thinking it and processing that weight cut, because I used to cut weight for wrestling. And it's true. I used to cut 30 pounds in 2 weeks, and I used to feel like I was dying the day of, because we would wrestle 4 hours after weighing in. But in boxing, you guys can weigh in the night before, or even, in MMA now, they do it at like 10 a.m. the day before, just to give you all that extra time to rehydrate. But I did see what you're saying, and I wanted to have your take on this. So a lot of MMA fighters now, they've developed a way of cutting weight very strangely, where they will, the day before weigh-in, they'll go to sleep super early. They'll wake up at midnight, and then they'll go from midnight to like 8 a.m., cutting all the weight at once to minimize the window of how long they stay at a lighter weight. They weigh in at 10 a.m., and then they go right back to just recovering again and rehydrate. Do you think that that's something that boxing could use, or do you think it would be a benefit to boxing, or do you think that would be a detriment?
I think it's difficult to say because we here in California, at least I don't know how it works in other places, but here in California, and I know for sure in North Carolina, South Carolina, you're only given 24 hours. You have to weigh in 24 hours before your fight. So if your fight is at like 7 p.m. Saturday, you have to weigh in at like 6 p.m. on Friday. And it's very strict. Like the weigh-ins are late. My last fight, my weigh-ins were at like 5 or 6 p.m. So I have pretty much all of the day before the weigh-ins. I can't eat or drink anything because, like I said, it'll affect my weight. And then I have all day, the day of weigh-ins before getting on the scale. So that's another reason why I choose to stay close to my weight class, close to fight weight, because I mean, imagine if I were cutting 20 pounds or more, and then I have to be there for 2 days, almost 2 days, not eating or drinking anything, and just slowly killing myself. I don't want to do that. I want to be in the sport for as long as I can, give myself the best advantage possible. So I recommend to other fighters and my teammates and everyone, just diet well, eat clean foods, don't drink alcohol, don't put anything bad in your body, because ultimately it's going to affect you.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. Damn, I forgot that boxing hasn't adapted to that. Because the mixed martial arts they've recently adapted where you can weigh in like several hours ahead, and it's even like a thing in the UFC where guys will do the official weigh-in at like 10 a.m. and then by like 2 p.m. they'll have the one that takes like place on video.
I think they do that. I think everyone has to agree to it though. And at the level of boxing that I'm at right now, it's really these local shows that are governed by the California Commission, which is there very strict, making sure that everything's done the right way.
Okay. So with that in mind, since you do have a very strict diet, what is your go-to meal right after you make weight? Like, is there one thing that you're like, damn, I've been craving this for a minute, I earned this, and you go right to it?
Yeah, so I mean, so far after weigh-ins, I'm always going to B-dubs. Like it's almost like a celebration after weigh-ins, because we're getting excited for the fight. I trained hard. I had a whole camp, and the big moments here now. Time to fight. So we do have like a little. It's not a big celebration, but we go out and eat. We'll go to take my family to Buffalo Wild Wings, get some wings, get some fries, because I'm really not eating any fries, or any barbecue. I'm a big barbecue fan, so a steak or ribs or something like that. I'm excited to eat after weigh-ins. And I'm a big candy guy too. So after the fight, I'm for sure eating candy and ice cream.
Okay, so what's your go-to flavor for ice cream, and what's your go-to candy?
I like we'll go to there's a bunch of ice cream shops out here. There's Mexican ice cream shops that I like to go to, but just like my normal ice cream to go to would be uh cookie dough, chocolate chip cookie dough, for sure a go to. And then candy, I like anything sour. So I eat all kinds of candy. Like I'll get a box of Nerds, a box of Sour Patch Kids, these sweet tart ropes, or these Nerds gummies, and just snack on them.
All right, man, that's actually a pretty dope one. I like that too, man. I'm like that myself. I have a huge
Yeah,
sweet
that's
tooth.
my go. Like I said, I don't drink or smoke, so I don't have anything to like that really. When I'm out going out or something, I'm not going to get a drink or anything. I just normally got like a bag of candy in my pocket. I'm just snacking on candy.
No, but that's a good thing, man. It's like you should definitely have something that like because I used to work for a guy named Troy Sutter down in Texas. I'm actually wearing the shirt for his shop. Rest in peace to him. But he was a power lifter, strong man. He used to do crazy stuff. And one time I used to tell him, I was like, dude, you eat so healthy, but then you have a Coca-Cola twice a week. And he's like, yeah, because if you only eat healthy shit all the time, your body's gonna hate it. You're gonna lament that feeling of eating good food. And then he also told me that he had this idea that like if you eat something unhealthy once in a blue, your body knows what bad carbs feel like. It knows what bad things feel like. And yeah, you get to enjoy it for a little bit because it's pretty much marketed that way to be the perfect type of sugar or the perfect type of salt for you to eat. But what it does, it also tells your body like, hey, the shit we normally eat is so much better than this. and so it kind of has its own benefit in its own weird way. I definitely prescribe to that idea myself. But I wanted to, the sugar and like sweets is something that we've loved for all of mankind, and I think in culture, it's part of the culture. Like you have to love certain things. Like I'm a Dominican kid. I grew up on habichuela con dulce. I will eat that every. You put habichuela con dulce in front of me, 5 feet away, nice and hot, with the crackers in it. I'm gone. You're gonna look that way, and then you're gonna turn back, and it's gonna be like, yo, what happened? I'll be like, I don't know. You see all the crumbs on me. So I understand that, brother. Now that you're going down to the welterweight division, how do you think you stack up against the guys at the top of the division? Maybe not as you are right now, but like in your mind, like you know how you go through the battle mentally long before you ever step in, and you meditate on like what is that fight gonna look like? How do you see yourself with the guys at the top of the welterweight division, and how do you see the division as a whole overall? Like, what do you see in the state of the weight class?
Of the welterweight division, 147, right? Obviously, I mean, I only got 6 fights right now. And I'd love to sit here and tell you, I'm the best in the world. I'll match up with those guys and I'll beat them, and I do believe that every man can be beat. As long as they bleed blood, they can fall, they can lose. So I always keep that in mind with every fight. At the moment, if you look at the guys that I fought in the past, they weren't very tough opponents, considered on paper, right? They have, only a few wins, and they're mostly journeymen, tough guys that are going into the fight, but they still come to fight. They come to win. But at the moment, I want to start challenging myself, and we were supposed to fight an undefeated fighter this last fight. Unfortunately, he pulled out prior to the fight with no exact reason. I do plan on trying to get that fight again, or trying to fight someone that's undefeated. Having a tough fight against maybe just someone with more experience, to help me gain that experience I need, so that I can just keep marching keep marching up the ladder, to get there to the top. um the way I'd match up, I mean, I joke around in the gym, hey, I'm dropping a 47 now, I need to see Terrence Crawford. What's up with the Terrence Crawford fight? But I think that, and I look at guys from in the 140 weight class and the 154, because it's like I feel like the guys from the 140 could come up to 47. I probably won't be at 47 my whole career, so I'll probably go back up to 54 and ultimately back up to 160. So I like to just see who the top guys are in those weight classes. I study Terrence Crawford. Um, I like to think that a potential fight between me and Xander Zayas in the future would be huge. A Mexican versus Puerto Rican, big fight at super welterweight. Um, I always think that as long as I'm doing what I need to do and I'm training myself properly, I'm continuing to grow my trajectory. You see that I'm going towards the top.
Absolutely, brother. That's something that I think is great that you're consistently seeing yourself going this way, and in your mind you're like, I can capitalize on this absolutely. And the fact that you said Terrence Crawford made me laugh, because I was like, yeah, that's the ballsiest move you can think of. Because even I'm
Yep.
like, man, that guy is terrifying, but he's so good. You're like, I watched him fight somebody and he switched stances mid combination and knocked the guy out, and I was so mad because there's a part of you as the guy on the outside that's been like training your whole life. You're like, I could do that, but then in your head you're like, no, I couldn't do that shit yet. I would have to like train extremely hard, and it's so impressive to watch it.
Him and watch
Boots, yeah.
Boots too. I think Boots is gonna be. You'll see him coming for the crown as well.
Yeah, I can definitely see that fight playing out really well. I don't think Terrence is as involved in it. Like, I don't think he gives a shit. I don't think he's really too crazy about the fight with Boots at this time. Maybe Boots beat somebody else. But the Airborne Junior fight, that was fantastic. I don't think we can
Amazing.
say anything bad about that. But like looking at those guys, and like you said, Xander is one of those guys who I think you would match up with extremely well. Styles make fights, and that's what we want. But looking at the top five of maybe the welterweight division, is there one or two guys in that stack rank of those top five guys that you could look at and be like, our styles would be perfect together? Like that would be a dream match.
Well, like I said, I'm a boxer puncher, so my style works well with every style. If I have a come forward fighter, I can counter him. I can box. I can outbox a come forward fighter, a Mexican style fighter, and then I can compete well with very skillful technical boxers such as Terrence Crawford. I spar with Elijah Flores from time to time. He fights at 140, 147. Um, and he's one of the most technical boxers that I've seen in person. He sparred with Tank. He sparred with Connor Ben. He sparred with who's the guy that just fought Devin Haney? Regis Prograis. And I've watched him spar these guys and compete with them, and then think like, what I would do in his shoes, and because I haven't got to spar those guys, but I get to spar him, the guy who spars all these, top level pros. Um, and he gives everybody problems. He gives me problems, but I think the best thing is that we're teammates and we make each other better. He's definitely made me a way better boxer, and I can see where, I can match up against any style.
That's amazing, man. Because that's that whole iron sharpens iron, gold kind of rubs off on gold thing, and I think that's wonderful that you guys have that in your gym, in your team. And I was gonna ask you too, because you come from the Mexican heritage, and Mexico has produced some of the greatest fighters of all time, especially in combat sports. What do you think it is that's made your heritage so dominant in combat sports specifically?
Yeah, you're right. When you look at other sports, you don't see many Mexicans taking, you know, the top spot other than maybe soccer. Um, baseball. You can argue we have some very well Mexicans in baseball, but boxing, you see countless weight class. You see countless stories and in history. Just Mexicans have taken the lead in boxing. With the face of boxing, Canelo Alvarez, who's one of my idols. Um, what I think makes it is I guess you see that Mexico's a third world country. People come from poverty and people want more. They want better. That's why my grandfather came over here to America for a better life. And for more money. We want more, and I think that's what helped us prevail in boxing. Just that grit and that chip on our shoulder, um, wanting to be honorable, wanting to you know Mexicans are very very tough with their judgment. So I feel like every Mexican fighter goes in there wanting the acceptance of their people, not just Mexicans alone, but everyone in the crowd. So we fight hard, we fight tough, and now you're seeing more and more that we're starting to adjust and fight smarter.
Yeah, man, Mexico has some of the best fighters, and as a Mexican, I would like to have your 2 cents on this one. Um, Canelo potentially might fight David Benavidez, who we all kind of want him to fight the Mexican monster. How do you see that fight playing out?
It's a tough one. It's a back and forth in my head whether or not Canelo would be still in his prime and be able to overpower the huge David Benavidez. Um, I mean, Canelo is a guy coming from 154 all the way up to 168. So he's of smaller stature. But like he said before, he he's small. He says something like, "Si estoy chiquito, pero soy cabrón," meaning he's small, but he's a badass. Um, and you see guys like Mike Tyson, who are smaller fighters, be able to defeat bigger fighters. And I could mostly, I think I see David Benavidez learning a lot from this fight and ultimately being a superstar in the sport because he just needs that opportunity to fight him, win or lose. Canelo's eventually going to retire, and David Benavidez is going to still be boxing, and people are going to want to see another great Mexican fighter.
Yeah, there's always going to be someone clamoring for that. And speaking of Mexican fighters, my man, I saw your new Machete t-shirt, and I'm like, I gotta order one soon for myself. But now that you started to brand yourself, and I am happy that you're branding yourself, how do you really envision the brand as a whole? Like overall, what is it that you want it to be, or how would you like the brand to be received by boxing fans?
Yeah, this is my second T-shirt I got made. Thanks for noticing. I got a bunch of them made, and I'm excited to be selling these T-shirts and having my fans be able to purchase something other than just a ticket to the fight. Something that represents someone that represents them. I represent a lot of people. I don't just represent Mexicans or Americans or veterans, or I feel like I represent anyone that wants to be um represented by me. Anyone that is a fan of me, I represent them. Um and to have a t-shirt is really cool. I used to wear a jersey, and the jersey was the coolest thing for me. And you see a lot of people wearing their favorite team's jersey, and I want it to be like that. I'm their favorite fighter. Here's something that you can wear. People look at it and like, hey, what's that shirt mean? And then you tell them, hey, this is my favorite fighter. Check out this knockout that he got. I hope it gets received well. I hope people like the design. I have a lot of future colorways that I want to do with the shirt. Ultimately, sticking with that same logo. I'm excited. I'm happy about it.
It's wonderful. And where can the fans actually purchase that shirt? Because I know a lot of them are on Instagram looking at it and like,
Yeah, so I don't have like a website or anything. I ask people to just DM me. I reply to everybody. You DM me what size you want, and then pretty much send me your address, and I'll send it over.
Absolutely, man. So you've heard it here first. I'm gonna put his IG tag down in the comments. Make sure you DM him if you want the shirt. This is my last question for you, and I appreciate you for your time, brother. But when it's all said and done, you take the gloves off, you put them in the center of the ring, you get out, you walk out of there, you say hello to your family, walk into the back to the curtains. It's over. Your career's done. At that point, how would you like your career to be judged as a whole, and what do you want your legacy to be as a fighter?
Yeah, man, that's a deep question that I'm sure will probably change, from time to time, going towards the future. Um, right now, at the point where I'm at, obviously, I want to say at the end of my career that I was the best to ever do it. I shocked the world. I gave the world, these amazing fights that they'll talk about forever, just like the previous greats. Um, right now, I get compared to a couple fighters, and what I think about now is that I I don't mind being compared to other fighters. I don't mind people saying, "Hey, man, you fight like this guy. You look like this guy," or you do this, which is what this fighter does. Who do you compare yourself to? And most fighters would be like, you know what? I don't compare myself to nobody. I'm myself. But I don't mind being compared to these great fighters. I take it as a compliment. All I know is that at the end of the day, when my gloves are off and everything's done, I want people to use me and compare other fighters to me.
Damn, brother, that's deep. I like that one, man. That's wonderful. I'm hoping so too, brother. We're definitely watching your career unveil as a whole, and we're all excited for the next events and the next fights. Again, I like that kind of like you can follow in somebody's footsteps and leave your own footprint, and I respect that. That's definitely something that we want to
Definitely.
see more and more of. Um, and before I let you go now, just let the people know what you have coming up next. If you have any events planned, or if you have any fights planned coming up next, please let us know, and let us know where we can consistently follow you and see your career as it unfolds.
Yeah, of course. I actually have a huge announcement. I'm very excited to announce that I'm going to be fighting for Team Combat League. Yeah, I'm going to be fighting for Team Combat League on the LA Elite team. So the Los Angeles Elite. We have a stacked team. It's going to be great. If you guys haven't heard of Team Combat League, you guys definitely got to check it out. It's an up and coming boxing platform. It's team oriented. And I'm going to be representing LA is going to be representing pretty much all of Southern California because we're the only California team. Um, I'm excited. We're going to be fighting against the Las Vegas Hustle March 28th here in LA.
You heard it here first, folks. March 28th, 2024. Team Combat League, LA versus Las Vegas. Our very own Angel Machete Munoz will be on the card. He'll be putting it on for LA, for South California. Hey, brother, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for just giving me this little bit of, of your day. I know that you got a lot going on and you're doing a lot of training. So thank you so much for coming. Thank you to everyone that's watching for your curiosity. And Angel, anything else you want to let the fans know?
Yeah, man, just thank you. Thank everyone for their support. Thank you for having me on. Everyone can follow me on my Instagram, which I'm sure you'll put up there. And you can expect great things coming in the future.
Absolutely. Hell yeah, brother. We're going to be watching the whole time. Angel, thank you so much for your time, brother. Take care.
Thank you.
Peace.